warm welcome to a short tutorial on SharePoint list provisioning using SharePoint Framework with No Framework tutorial series. Long ago, SharePoint development was done extensively using Visual Studio and mostly C#. Also, it was language independent or declarative or XML based. So we had the concept of elements.xml and schema through which SharePoint objects were provisioned. SharePoint solutions were WSP files or packages, and they had various elements. It may be lists, site columns, content types, custom actions, or any other SharePoint object. So overall, any SharePoint object was mostly denoted by a elements.xml and schema.xml, which was part of a feature. So what are we going to do today? We are going to create a SharePoint object using the latest SharePoint framework using Visual Studio Code and also the Visual Studio SharePoint add-in, and we'll create the list, site columns and content type. So how are we going to do it? So first you launch your Visual Studio, either the Community Edition or the Professional Edition, and start off a new SharePoint hosted app. So you have nice tools there to create the XML files. It's very difficult to type everything, and definitely there will be spelling errors and you might be breaking your head to get the code working. So I suggest you use the Visual Studio SharePoint hosted add-in. Just generate the XML files. There is option there to add a new list item or site column or content types, and we generate the elements.xml needed. Then you create the SharePoint framework solution, and we create a new folder, SharePoint assets, from the root. In that we will add the elements and schema.xml. We'll be moving most of the code from the Visual Studio elements to this particular SharePoint framework solution. And only one small change, we will add a custom schema and the feature ID for list in the elements file. So once that is done, our list can be easily provisioned using SharePoint framework. So as a quick demo, we will launch a simple SharePoint list new SharePoint framework solution, and that will create a new SpFx list with a simple column called fruit color, which will be a choice column. So let's get started. I'll just select the Visual Studio Community Edition, launch a new project. Make sure you have the Office 365 Developer Tools installed and you have the Office or SharePoint add-in. I'll choose the SharePoint add-in SpFx Demo and I'll select OK. And choose a developer site. Make sure your site is a developer site, otherwise the content type creation will throw an error. So we'll select Next and we'll just choose the SharePoint Online and select Finish. Next, once the project is launched, we'll start off by creating a site column for fruit color, which is a choice type. Then we will start adding the content type and also the list instance. So I'll select, right click the project, select add new item, and we'll scroll down and select site column. So let's say SpFx, let me do Tango fruits color. Okay, I'm going to just add the choices now. So you have some nice IntelliSense. So select that and we'll start with typing the various choices. So like apple is red and we have avocado which is green. So let me just give fruit colors, and then we have mango which is yellow, and for others we give the choice of others. Let's have the final choice and say others. So you can refer the Microsoft site to get the get an idea of how to create various types. So I'm going to give the type as choice here. So this is done. So we have created the site column. Next, we start by creating the content type. So I'll just select this and select content type. I'll just say SpFx Thangu content type fruits demo. Of course, you give a meaningful name. Select item for now. You have other options also. You just choose the item. Based on your needs, you choose the content type. And over here, we need to choose the column. So I'm just going to use SPFX fruit color and I'm done. So now we have created the elements for content type, site column or the field. And if you look at the content type elements.xml. So if you select the elements.xml, see how it is. So we have the elements.xml and the XML declaration is there with the name, and see how it is linked to the field called SPFX Tango fruit color. So we have the fruit and content type. Next, we'll try to add the list. So I'll just say new item. Let's start by adding a list. I'll just say SPFX Tangu list, fruits list. Let's give fruits list and select add. We'll try to use the content type. Let's try to give the content type, select content types, and we'll just give the content type as SPFX Tangu content type, and we'll just uncheck the others. We'll just try to make sure that, or just make sure that this is the default, and we'll select OK. So this particular content type has title and the color. Now if we go to the list instance, let's go to the list instance. So I'll go to the elements. So this is the file we have. Now in case you want to add some predefined data, we have the concept of data. So I'm going to use the data. So we start off by adding the rows, and within each row we have the row. So for the first row we have to give the field name. Let's try the title, and the value let's give as apple, and next we'll give the field. Let's give the field name. We don't see the field name here. I'm just going to get the field name from here for the column name which I gave. And I'll just say red. So like this, I can add a couple of values. So let me just give avocado, and I'll say green, and let me just give mango, and I'll say yellow, and save it. So now we have the elements ready. So next we have to go to the SharePoint Framework part. I'll create a new folder called, let's say, Thangu SpFx new list demo. Okay, and I'll just move to that folder, and inside that folder I'll start creating a new project, u@Microsoft/SharePoint. So I'll give the solution name as Tangu SpFx new list demo, and use SharePoint Online only, use the current folder. I'll give yes to the next question and just give web part. Let me just say Tango new list and give some. Select no JavaScript framework, and it will take some time. I'll just pause. Now that the solution has been created, I'll just type code dot and open in Visual Studio Code. Next, I need to create a folder called SharePoint, and within that assets. So this is the root folder, and I'll just select new folder and type SharePoint and then within SharePoint, I'll just type assets. So now we have SharePoint and assets. Now we'll start moving our code one by one. So I'll add a new file called elements.xml and another file called schema.xml. So these two files I need to add. So in the elements, I'm going to go to the Visual Studio project and I'll start off with let's start with the fruits or the site column itself. So I'll go to the site column and just copy paste that. Okay. So now I've copy pasted the fruit color. So next element I need to copy is the content type. So we have the content type. So I'll copy the content type which is referencing this site column. So we have the field first and next we have the content type. Next we need to copy paste the list instance. So if we look at the list instance, we have this particular list instance. So I'll go ahead and copy paste that from the Visual Studio Code. But there are two properties we need to add. So this is a list. So let me go back here. I need to just give the schema reference and the feature ID for the list. So I'm just going to just make sure I got that. And let me just go back. So sometimes we might have to type it again or put it in notepad and paste it. So I'm just making sure it's properly typed. So custom schema is schema.xml and then we have feature ID for list. So this is the elements.xml. Now if we go to the schema, I'm going to the schema of this list instance. I'll just select this list and copy paste that here. So if I go to the schema, I have the list which is just referencing the content type and the views, new, display and edit form. So we have the elements. Next we go to the solution in the package solution.json from the config folder and I add the features description mentioned in the Microsoft site. So I'm just going to rename this to the solution which I'm working on and the title and description, or based on your need you're just going to rename that and give the ID as a new ID. I'm just opening PowerShell and I'm just typing new hyphen GUID and running that. So with PowerShell you can easily create a new GUID and let's just select this, and once this is done we can just copy paste the new GUID and the rest will be the same. I'll be showing the link of Microsoft at the end in the reference section. So we have the features, title, description, ID, version, and the assets. We have elements.xml and schema.xml. Next, we bundle the solution using gulp bundle, and we call the command gulp package solution to package the solution so that a SharePoint Framework app solution is created. So we'll wait for the bundle and packaging to complete. Next we do gulp package hyphen solution. So once it's all done, you go back to the solution, and if you look at the folder, let's just check. There is a solution folder and we have the SpFxKG. So this is the extension of the SharePoint Framework app now. So new package is created. So let me just reveal in Explorer. So this is the solution. Let's open this. Now I'll go back to my app catalog. So I'm going to the app catalog site. You can access that from admin site also, and just put site/app catalog and we'll just drag and drop. And it should be asking you to validate also. Select the option that it's available to all sites and select deploy. And you can see that the app is added without any errors. In case of any errors, of course, it might be a little tricky since this is declarative coding. Make sure that you use the Visual Studio tool and copy paste the entire code just from the Visual Studio tool and just check for any simple spelling errors and just upload again and it should be working fine. Let's go back to the SharePoint site. Let's say I'm going to another dev site and I want to add an app. I'll select add an app. So this app is going to deploy a list dynamically. So I'll search for Thangu. Let me check if it's added. Or I'll just search for everything again. So I'll just wait for some time and it's got added. So let's just add it. And note that while it is running, it should be deploying my list too. So it's getting added. Let me refresh the page. So let's wait. And I open the list and it has the list, the column title, SpFxNoFxListProvision, and also the 3 items added. And when I try to add a new item, I have the option to select the color also. So this list has been provisioned using SharePoint Framework. If you have any doubts, you can refer the Microsoft Provision SharePoint Assets from your SharePoint client-side web part. I just gave some tips on using Visual Studio to get your development done faster. So this is the age-old technique on how SharePoint developers used to develop long back, and I felt that this can be continued to make the development easier even in SharePoint Framework apps. So we'll come back and have a quick recap of the steps. So we used the Visual Studio SharePoint hosted add-in to generate the elements and schema XML for the site column, content type, and list. Then we created the SharePoint and assets folder in the SharePoint Framework solution. We copy pasted the necessary elements from the Visual Studio code for the site column, content type, and the list instance. And also we added the following attributes to link to the schema and make sure that this is a list feature. So then we deployed and packaged the solution using Gulp package solution, and we also tested for our fruits list. For the reference, you can just refer to the Microsoft Provision SP assets from package, and hope this helps you to provision SharePoint list automatically with the latest SharePoint Framework app. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.